in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
This week, attending the Economist 18th Cyprus Summit, one presidential candidate tells us that Cyprus solution negotiations must pick up where they left off in 2017.
To build an environment that will be conducive for the negotiations and then finish the last remaining mile without reopening anything. If we reopen something, forget it. It's partition.
We also hear from another candidate about putting energy on the negotiating table. And the finance minister tells us that the government has done all it can to relieve the cost of living pressure on vulnerable households. The weeks of German language kick off on Sunday. We get the details from the German ambassador.
The weeks of the German language hopefully will help promote our connection and the interest of Cypriot people in learning German and following the German language.
And back to the Economist Summit. In his address to the summit, the deputy chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee said Russia could find itself in a geopolitical trap.
So Russia is going to become overly dependent on China as far as its energy resources are concerned. It's going inadvertently, but clearly in the direction to find itself in the geopolitical trap of China.
The Economist 18th Cyprus Summit took place earlier this week in Nicosia. The final panel on Tuesday featured 3 of our presidential hopefuls, and while one of them made a rather hasty exit, I caught up with 2 of them. Here's Andreas Mavroyannis. So, Andreas, you were the only speaker to address the actual topic, I noticed today, and I did pose a question at the end asking how we could say we would be a paradigm of openness, as in the title of the session, when we have this problem with corruption and a lack of transparency.
You are absolutely right to mention it, and it appears as a contradiction in terms. But this is why we need to completely restructure and change. We need to end those phenomena that pull down the country and does not allow it to take its pace, and also the lack of credibility does not even allow us to tackle the Cyprus problem. So this is fundamental. Day one we will change this. No tolerance for any practices like this. Full transparency, full accountability, and a very huge effort to prosecute those responsible. Not that we have illusions that we will manage to put everybody in jail, etc., but in order to show that is not tolerated.
And how will you go about doing that?
You don't need really changes in the law. The law is there. What we have to do is to implement it based on European standards. So it's about political will and determination.
And let's come to the Cyprus issue.
Yes.
And the way you would approach that.
Yes. There again, we need to be credible ourselves. We need to stand by the fundamentals of the sought-after solution. No move, because it was the fact that we showed that, it's this, but it could be something else. It could be 2 states, which created the current situation. Do you expect the other side not to take it up? If you yourself, you give the impression that you would go in this direction. Therefore, we need to be firm, to be sure that we defend what we have achieved so far in the negotiations, and then use what I was calling the organic conditions of peace to build an environment that will be conducive for the negotiations, and then finish the last remaining mile without reopening anything. If we reopen something, forget it. It's partition. And
so why did we not come to this conclusion in Crans-Montana? You're basically saying,
yes,
let's take up where we left off.
Yes.
What was the problem in Crans-Montana?
In Crans-Montana there were 2 problems. One is that at the end, Turkey did not go along with 2 of the points of Guterres concerning security and guarantees, troops and abolition of the Treaty of Guarantee, if you like. So,
but sorry, we
didn't
were told at the time that they agreed to a gradual reduction of troops,
yes,
and we turned that down.
No. What they said is that they accepted a review on the Treaty of Guarantee after 15 years, and then 10 years was the minimum they were accepting review. And then he was saying that yes, gradual reduction, but what the troops that will remain forever. So
they were talking about 400-500, like we have from the Greek army.
No. Guterres was talking about figures similar to the Treaty of Alliance, 650 and 950. Çavuşoğlu was talking about something else, 1,500, 2,000. I didn't really define it, but the problem was the combination of two. Review in 15 years and
what makes you think that would change now?
Because I believe that the interruption and the stop of the effort was precipitated. And Guterres bears some responsibility, but we all bear some responsibility because, we were at a turning point, a historical moment. We never came so close. Why should we stop? Why didn't we continue the next day?
But that's the answer everybody wants to know.
But this is what I'm asking myself. I don't say we solved the problem. But if you read the report of the Secretary General, you will see that he says, that effective participation was there, that even on the question of property, the question of territory and the treatment of Turkish citizens, we have accepted what he asked us. So the remaining 2 points were those for us. So if we deliver where we have to deliver and we go back exactly to where we were, all we need is to continue on this basis that offers the only way forward. And by the way, Mustafa Akinci, when we met in Berlin in 2019, he was on the same line. The problem was that we were thinking that we would start immediately after their elections postponed, eventually Turkey interferes and Tatar wins, and everything went down.
And do you think you can do something with Mr. Tatar?
I don't choose the leader of the Turkish Cypriot community, but yes, I believe that we can change the context and we can find a way to bring them back to the table, because we need to find a way. Otherwise, there is no future for this island. And when there is a will and when there is a need, there should be a way.
Presidential candidate Andreas Mavroyiannis. Averos Neophytou also found time to recap what he said about how, if elected, he would approach the Cyprus problem.
The main question was how we make the breakthrough for the Cyprus issue. And I repeat my approach for security accession of Cyprus to NATO and to give an incentive to Turkey to show a goodwill for the resumption of the negotiation, put the energy on the agenda of the Cyprus issue, of not excluding any country of the region when dealing with energy and the natural gas.
So you think that energy should become part of the solution, and also we've had suggestions that perhaps in the buffer zone there could be a renewables park that's bi-communal. Does that feature as well?
So this will, I'm not rejecting any idea to improve the cooperation among the two communities, but we have to bring on the table Turkey.
Do you have any indication that if you put energy on the table and try to come to some agreement on the EEZ, that could work?
I believe that energy now is the number one issue worldwide. And it's an issue in Turkey as well, because Turkey is dependent on Russia for its energy. And we have a lot of energy resources in the Eastern Mediterranean. By hearing people of plans to take the natural gas from Eastern Mediterranean, to go with pipeline to Europe, that's a nice subject to talk about.
It's not practical, is it?
Did they ask the investors if they are willing to invest tens of billions for such a project, for a market that has decided by 2050 to abandon natural gas and oil?
DC leader Averos Neophytou. Our Finance Minister, Konstantinos Petridis, was a panellist on Tuesday, and I tackled him about help for vulnerable households at this difficult time. Can you just tell me a little bit about why you're spending, I think it's 55 million on defence and 39 on the Interior Ministry when people are struggling to pay their bills?
Because we are facing existential issues and need to have military.
But it's not going to help the average person. The EU is discussing how this can be relieved, if you like, for citizens of Europe, and we seem to... Well, the fact that the cost of living is going up, there's inflation...
Yes, we've been doing a lot. We just spent extra 380 million just to support vulnerable groups after COVID, and 3 billion. So I think we have proved our sensitivity, our social sensitivity, and that we do help as much as we can to deal with the issues. Yeah.
But you're also getting quite a lot of tax returns from the energy VAT and all of that. Could that not be channeled to be helping the citizens of Cyprus?
It has been. Thank you very much.
Finance Minister Konstantinos Petridis.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
The weeks of German language after a 2-year hiatus kick off again on Sunday. It's something that's become very popular in Cyprus, where there are quite a few German speakers. And we're joined on this week's programme to find what's on the agenda this year by Her Excellency Anka Schlimm, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Nicosia. Also joining us from the Goethe Institute will be Gabriele Gauler, and from the Swiss Embassy, Andrula Mikhail. So we'll start, if we may, with you, Anka. Tell us why this is quite important in the remit of what embassies do, because it's a way of connecting, I think, isn't it, with the country that you're in?
Well, we are very happy indeed that after the pandemic we are back with the weeks of the German language here in Nicosia. And this is, of course, a program run together by Switzerland, Germany, and Austria, the German-speaking countries. And we are happy to have put together, I think, a very exciting program, which will kick off on Sunday, this Sunday, 23rd of October, at 10 o'clock in the Phaneromeni Square in Nicosia. And we are very happy that also the mayor of Nicosia will be there. And let me give you some highlights of the program and what we have prepared for you. There is, of course, a piano concert by the German-Japanese pianist Mario Hering, and he will perform selected pieces by well-known German composers. And we will also have a presentation of German Romanticism, and touching on literature, music, and the intellectual movement of this Romanticism period in Germany. Finished off, of course, by a glass of wine. And let me also mention a movie that we have prepared for you in Limassol, in the Rialto Theatre. It's a film by the name of And Tomorrow, the Whole World. And this film was Germany's official entry for 2021 International Oscar Films. And last but not least, and I would like to call your attention to this, is our famous and I would say traditional Weihnachtsmarkt, Christmas fair, prepared by the German Cypriot Association. And this will give a Germany Christmas atmosphere in Polydynamo Center of Nicosia Municipality on the 27th of November.
Let me come to you from the Goethe, if I may, Gabrielle, because you're very much involved in culture across the board here in Cyprus. How much input did the Goethe Institute have into putting the programme together?
Actually, we are on the cultural side, but also on the language side, because the Goethe Institute is also there for the support of the German language in Cyprus. So let me start with our language activities. We will start on October 23rd a competition for German language learners in Cyprus from the age 13 to 18. It's a video competition, and we hope that we will have many participants.
What do they have to do for that?
They will have to produce a 3-minute video in German. They can do it in a pair or 3 students together, and they can select any topic that they are really very, very interested in and that they are engaged in. And we want to know from the video how much this topic really interests them. It can be environmental topic, it can be their learning environment, it can be the family, whatever they're really engaged with. And this lasts for 1 month. And then we will organize a day for the German language teachers in Cyprus. That will happen on November 19th. This is with registration only. It's not a public event. But on the cultural side, we are also organizing several film programs. A very traditional one in the weeks of the German language is Moving Silent, which we organize together with the Athos House here in Cyprus. We are presenting silent movies from Cyprus and from Germany, and this is accompanied by local musicians in the Athos House.
And Jenny, if I come to you, Switzerland, of course, has more than one language.
Yes.
But you always get involved, I think, in the German Language Week. So what's your input this year?
Yes, that's correct, because Switzerland's main languages are German, French and Italian and Romansh, but in that particular order, with over 60% of the population speaking German. However, the language that they do speak is Swiss German, which is a combination of Alemannic dialects, if you like. You could compare it to how it is in Cyprus. What you speak and what you write are 2 different things, so they have the German as their reading and writing language. So we have been cooperating with our neighbouring countries, with Germany and Austria, and the Weeks of the German Language are in their 6th edition, and we have a lot of cooperation between us. And this year, Switzerland is participating with a film, which has become a tradition, I would say, and it's an uplifting comedy, something I think we all needed. And it's actually in Swiss German with English subtitles, and it's going to be screened on the 31st of October at the Pantheon in Nicosia, and on the 5th of November, which is a Saturday, at the Rialto in Limassol. Otherwise, we are cooperating with our partners also with the German and Austrian embassies for a concert. We have a closing concert. It's become a tradition as well towards the end of the festival, which is the magical world of the leader. It's going to be at the Rialto on the 26th of November, and it's more of a classical note, I would say, that the concert has. And of course, the Austrian embassy will be screening a film at the Pantheon in Nicosia on the 7th of November. It's called Falco, and it's a story about a famous Austrian superstar and about his life in the 80s. So I think it's a film that must not be missed. Otherwise, the Cyprus-Swiss Association is rounding up the whole affair with a public screening of Switzerland playing Brazil in the World Cup.
Well, sport is part of culture, yeah. I think, isn't it? Anko, if I can come back to you, as ambassador, it's very important for you to firm up any ties between the host country and your country. Now, I know a lot of Cypriots go and study in German. A lot of them do courses at the Goethe to enable them to do that. How do you see this input in terms of making our relations even better? Because they are pretty good anyway.
We feel it is important to give more opportunities to Cypriots to get familiar with the German language, to learn German, of course at the Goethe Institute, but also we strive at more opportunities in learning German at public schools here in Cyprus, because we feel that this is also a good opportunity for students here in Cyprus to consider studying at some stage in Germany or in Austria and Switzerland, of course. We see that after Brexit, many people consider other study destinations other than the UK and Greece. And I would think that Germany offers very good options for studying, not only in medicine and engineering, but also in the arts or history. And knowing the German language, being exposed to Germany and the German culture, that is what we aim at. And the Weeks of the German Language hopefully will help promote our connection and the interest of Cypriot people in learning German and following the German language.
And of course it's very important, isn't it, if we look at multilingualism in the European Union, because people who are multilingual find it very much easier if they want to go and work abroad in the Union to get a job.
This is a good point. We want to offer choices to people here in Cyprus. And I'm very happy that tonight we will be attending the launch of a scholarship for the European Union for Cypriots who want to study in any of the European countries, including Germany, Austria and also Switzerland, to promote scholarships for the European Union. So all over the island we promote multilingualism and study opportunities in the European Union.
So you can immerse yourself in German culture and language, starting with a huge event in Fana Romani Square on Sunday. But you can find the details, I'm sure, online. Andriani, do you know where?
The Weeks of the German Language have their own Facebook page and website. And the information is at www.wdsscyprus.com. So you can find the information there, the full programme there. And the weeks close on the 28th of November with the football match and bretzels with sausages.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
And we'll finish back at that Nicosia summit. Ukraine's former Deputy Prime Minister, Grigory Nemiria, spoke on the panel dealing with the Eastern Mediterranean region amidst a global geopolitical upheaval.
This is not just war against Ukraine, it's war against Europe, it's the war against the global security order. But there is also, in terms of the simple languages, there are ways to look at Ukraine of war in Ukraine as an alarm bell, as a catalyst, and as a litmus test. And we've heard many logics along these lines. War as a catalyst is basically forcing, as Joschka Fischer said, forcing Europe to act according to its vital interests. To preserve the European way of life means to act, and the war in Ukraine is alarm bell. But it's also a catalyst. It's a catalyst because for quite many years we discussed in the similar forums whether the world security order that has been established after the Second World War and solidified after the end of the Cold War, where it's still a viable structure, always became we observed erosion of this. Now, I believe that we have to be very frank. The world order we knew does not anymore exist. But at the same time, nowhere near the new world order that would come to substitute the old already world order. Now we're in between. And what is in between? We're observing now, and that's my point, a formation of, instead of one order, many orders, with organizing the idea ranging from the region or macro region, like Indo-Pacific to Eastern Mediterranean. There is one way to look in the orders, and my colleague from California mentioned the energy dimension of this order and the Eastern Mediterranean. So what's the sensible, rational reaction to such phenomena? And that's, by the way, war as a litmus test as well. Whether the leadership, the quality of the leadership, is sufficient enough to respond in a responsible way. One response is this is a lesson from the war in Ukraine. Avoid geopolitical traps. Germany, a number of other countries in Europe, paying a high price, allowing to be in the geopolitical, geoeconomic trap that Russian Gazprom layered for many years, and now they're paying high price for this. So the same lessons should be also learned by other countries, from small and medium-sized countries as well. Over-dependencies are invitation to find yourself in a geopolitical trap at the time when the major crisis will erupt, ranging from war to pandemic or to other crises. On the other hand, the responsible way to react to such observation is to agree there is no grey zones anymore. Grey zones were part of the world security order that doesn't more exist. Those grey zones means country in between. And then the diplomats invented, and they are very creative in inventing various concepts ranging from the buffer zone, breach states, to a more kind of novel way to call it Finlandization. Finland is now going to be a NATO member. There is no more Finlandization scenario to survive for the countries in between. But being the buffer state instead of breach state is even worse, because it puts you just on the very forefront of the potential aggravation of crisis. But also the source of optimism here, that while Russia now clearly paying the price for overestimating itself and underestimating others, in Ukraine, the whole world, the EU as such, the unity of the West, is going to find itself in a geopolitical trap. Because as long as Russia is not anymore perceived as a reliable energy supplier for Europe as a customer, so Russia is going to become overly dependent on China as far as its energy resources are concerned. It's still going inadvertently, but clearly in a direction to find itself in a geopolitical threat of China. And as Yulia mentioned, with this 20th Congress of the Communist Party of China being finalized this week, probably, we don't know, but probably President Xi could find more confidence in basically not being willing to associate himself with the loser, which is Putin now, in the eyes of many. And the Chinese political culture, Chinese culture as such, also doesn't want to have nothing to do with the losers, which opens up a space for thinking creatively how bring China to the solution of this crisis, of this war, which is not bilateral war, it's not a regional peripheral war, it's not even war in Europe, it's a Eurasian war. But if you add a dimension of food and others, it's basically a global war. So China as a global actor might well be a player in this role. But that's required the leadership as far as the United States is concerned, Europe is concerned, and of course the courage of the Ukrainian people, which we will deliver to crush Russian aggressors as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Ukraine's former Deputy Prime Minister, Grigory Nemeria. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.